Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a dog with you. Another edition of Weber This Week. It is the 12th of February, 2018. It's good to have you alongside, and we'll be talking about Valentine's Day to remind all the men out there to make sure they come up with some major surprise for their loved one in a couple of days. And, it's great to do this show, and it's always great to bring a friend in who I've worked with quite a while, about 9-10 months, indirectly, obviously, at Del Lago, and it's Keith Baley. Keith, thanks for coming in, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Keith, of course, let's talk a little bit about yourself. We can talk about your job at Del Lago as we get closer to that, but give our overview of the audience relative to where you were born, where you went to school, and where you went to college, and how you ended up.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up pretty much my entire life in Manchester, very, very small town. Went to Red Jacket my entire life. Graduated in 2012. Then I went to Finger Lakes for 2 years. Was a big sports guy, especially once high school came around. Right. Did cross country at Finger Lakes, and then when I graduated with my associates, I went to SUNY Cortland to pursue my bachelor's in sports management. Graduated in 2016, and Del Lago Resort and Casino opened up about 6 or 7 months after I graduated. I had an internship in Martinsville, Virginia, the summer of 2016, where I worked as an intern with the Martinsville Mustangs, which is a summer baseball team that's down there.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun, a very good learning experience. And once Del Lago opened, promotions department really stuck out to me, and that's what I did in Martinsville, Virginia. I worked the entire promotions department down there. Right. That stuff that goes on in between innings, on the microphone, out there on the baseball field.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of
we go to all the Newark Pilot games, so we're familiar with that. Yeah, they do a lot of great things there, too.
A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't see, and I'm sure in the MLB or other sports areas like that, especially during commercial breaks, what a lot of people don't see is that behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on. No one really knows much of that unless you attend the game.
Well, I should point out, Keith certainly can make testimony to this. I worked at Del Lago as a consultant for the 10-month period last year. I joined the casino, I think it was like 2 days before we opened. I was hired by Crystal and by fine folks up in the marketing group. And my role was to go out and to greet the buses and to go over the daily promotions, et cetera, make them feel at home, welcome them as we always try to do, tell them what they're going to be getting that day and having some fun with them, busting their chops, having some great time. And over that 10-month period, I should tell you, I really enjoyed the job. And part of my job was to see the Keiths and the Chris's and Christie's and Karen. And, of course, you got Shannon, who's been a friend of mine for years. She's one of the supervisors, along with September. So one of the things I did is I would get him into the bus area, and Keith and whoever else was working that day, depending on how many buses we would have, would come up and man the computers behind the podium as you walked into the bus area. And so I would get them in, and we would line them up, people who had a player's card and people who didn't have a player's card, because the ones who had a card, it was easier for Keith and his folks to get them registered with their benefits and their tags. So I never really knew what they were doing. I never really paid attention because I couldn't do it since I had a non-gaming license. Being a non-gaming license, which means you cannot hand anybody cash or benefits. And if you give out free play, you're giving out actual money in it per se. So I never really paid much attention. So I left there December the 6th, and I enjoyed my 10 months. But I really didn't enjoy the fact I was getting paid without taxes being taken out. Believe it or not, I never thought I'd say that on this show. But I always said to my wife, Mary, and to my family, I really miss the people. I miss Keith and Chris and all the folks that I had a chance to work with. So I decided to reapply and to try to get a gaming license, and that's where we currently are. So I filled out the 6,000 documents, and we'll see what happens. So I'm waiting now to hear if I'm going to get a gaming license. If I do get one, I'll be back with promotions on a part-time basis, and Keith and his team will be trying to train an old dog new tricks. Should be fun, but I really enjoyed it. And, it's part of what we do out there to make everybody feel comfortable when they get in. And you and the rest of the staff there does a marvelous job of getting them through as quickly as humanly possible without trying to screw up their mistakes. And that's what it's all about, greeting them and getting them downstairs to have some fun, right?
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. And as you know, when people win a jackpot or something, it's promotions like Keith or somebody would go over there with a big check and
A lot of fun.
and put your arm around him and congratulate him. He just hasn't put his arm around me yet, but we'll see what happens. Well, you talk about, Del Lago and working at the promotion side of it. I should point out the reason I invited Keith on, this happened a few months ago. I asked him when I was obviously working there, I said, would you like to come on my talk show? And he said, yeah, sure, I'd love to come on. And here he is. Because one thing I found with Keith, because, we have a lot of back and forth before the buses arrive or between buses, and I was amazed at his knowledge of the NFL. He certainly follows other sports, but not as passionate as he follows the Tennessee Titans of the NFL, which is his favorite team. But he also has tremendous skill sets regarding different divisional breakouts and what this team should do or can do or has done. So we got a surprise for you, and I think, Jimmy, if you're ready, we can maybe go to that he produced just recently, and maybe you tell our viewers what you did. You put together a little YouTube. What's it about before we play it?
Yeah, it's a YouTube video that I created. It was in my spare time. Very passionate about the playoffs in NFL, as you mentioned. And I went through, I pointed out each team that made the playoffs from 6th seed up, and I provided little tidbits regarding what they accomplished in the playoffs with some cool music in the background.
All right, well, without further ado, here's Keith Baley's presentation of a little something for the Weber Show. Enjoy. That was great. Congratulations. Great job.
Thank you.
That was
it.
good. How about that for a capsule of the playoffs and the ultimate winner of the Super Bowl? Of course, we're talking about Fly Baby Fly, the Philadelphia Eagles, which, by the way, I was thinking I predicted New England would win by a few points. They were favored by 4.5. I thought they'd win by 2 or 3. They didn't do it. The fumble by Brady, as Keith has illustrated on his video, the one turnover, basically the one sack really in the game, proved to be the decider in a game of history at that point when Philly recovered the football. It would have been interesting, I guess, hindsight's always 20/20. What would have happened if he hadn't fumbled? Could he have brought him down and got the two-pointer to tie it at 41? But it was a great game, and kudos to the Eagle fans. They deserve a title, and the city's unlike anything else, and you could talk about Nick Foles to the day we die, right? What an amazing story.
It really is an amazing story where he came from. If you were to ask me back in 2013 when Nick Foles led the Eagles to a 10-6 record, and they lost the playoff game against New Orleans, that game was at home for them. And after that, I mean, Nick Foles, over the last couple years has been completely discredited over his accomplishment of throwing 7 touchdowns in a game against the Oakland Raiders. And Peyton Manning was able to accomplish that feat earlier that year, but when it comes to a record like that, no one really thinks of Nick Foles too often. Everyone forgets about him because he's not as big a name as a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. But yet here he is. He's been bouncing around over the last couple of years. He had a stop in, I believe it was St. Louis at the time, or Los Angeles, and then he had a stop with Kansas City. He was contemplating retirement, decided to come back and work with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I tell you what, when Carson Wentz went down with that injury, I was watching this game. They were going up against the Rams, speak of the devil. And when I saw Nick Foles step into the huddle, I immediately looked around and I said to myself, they're fine. They're fine. They have the weapons around Nick Foles to be successful. They had picked up Jay Ajayi. They had LeGarrette Blount. I mean, they had survived at that point the loss of Darren Sproles. They had lost Carson Wentz. I mean, and they had lost their star left tackle as well. I mean, it's crazy how Philadelphia has been able to overcome the injuries that they sustained that year.
Yeah, pretty amazing. You think Foles will stay with them, or you think he'll get traded, or what do you think off the cuff? Because I'm sure Wentz will be back next year full of steam, and he'll be ready to go healthy-wise.
I'm still trying to think about exactly what's going to happen to Nick Foles, because on one end, I think to myself, all right, Nick Foles, he's not the starter there. Once Carson Wentz gets back, that's totally going to be his team. It'll be Carson's 3rd year in the league, and he's the future. Nick Foles, we're not quite sure what his opinion is, because would he be willing to stay in Philly as the backup quarterback, or is he going to request, hey, look at what I did this past season, winning the Super Bowl, give me a chance, let me go to an NFL team, pursue an opportunity to start, and who knows, maybe he could be with good solid contender, turn him into something that should be a force next year.
Well, hey, what are you going to do? Keith Baley, my special guest, good friend out of Del Lago, booked him a few months ago as we were working side by side, and he is certainly very knowledgeable in the world of football. And I guess the question, we got a few minutes before we take a commercial break, what made you a Tennessee Titan fan? Where did the history of that, how you became Tennessee Titan fan, since you, if you had told me in your opening statement you were from Tennessee, I could see it. I just wondered how you became a Titan fan.
You know what? I've gotten that question a lot, dog. And it all boils back to one thing with me. The attractiveness of a small market team that nobody thinks about. Underrated, underdog. I mean, before Tennessee had their stretch where they were pretty bad, 2-14, 3-13. Before that stretch, so from 2013 back to, I believe it was 2006, there were only, I believe it was 7 teams in the NFL that had not posted worse than a 6-10 record over that span. And some of these you could name right off the back of your hand. You name the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, Green Bay, I believe Philadelphia, the San Diego Chargers were a surprising one of that bunch. You can't say the Indianapolis Colts because of the loss of Peyton Manning. They went 2-14. The other ones I completely forgot about, but one of them on that list was the Tennessee Titans, right in there with a list with teams like the Patriots, the Steelers, all of these big name teams, but still they never got recognition because they're a small market team. I mean, it's like the Jacksonville Jaguars. You don't get recognized until you accomplish something. And that's what the Steelers and Patriots were able to do, and that's why Philly, I mean, when they had Donovan McNabb, they made the NFC Championship game time and time again, but they could never win the big game. They got to the Super Bowl once out of their championship appearances before this last season, but no one was talking about them because they hadn't won any titles. So it's what have you done for me recently? And Tennessee, they never got past the divisional round over that span. That's why no one talked about them. And I really love rooting for the underdog.
Well, you certainly must be a big fan of the Buffalo Bills because they're an underdog. They did make the playoffs this year. One and done, unfortunately. Losing to Jacksonville in a game that they could have won. They found every reason to get a shot at winning. Your thoughts on Tyrod Taylor? I recall, I think I shared this with you when we were working together out at the Casino Del Lago. Nobody more of a legend than Jim Kelly, Mr. Buffalo Bills of all time, I guess. Respected when he came out last year with an interview indicating that, quote unquote, Tyrod Taylor is a nice kid. Pretty good quarterback, but in his opinion, he did not think he was the answer to the franchise of the Bills. Basically saying that not a bad player, but he's not the answer if you're trying to get to the finals of the AFC, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I was not taken back. I've never been a huge Tyrod Taylor fan because of his size and his inconsistency. Your opinion on Tyrod? It looks like the Bagulos have got more money. They're multi-billionaires, I know. It's hard for me to fathom. They would cough up $18 million to keep him. I think the timeline is in March of some sort this year. $18 million when, in fact, are they going to move on, let him go somewhere? It just seems hard for me to believe. And then, of course, we all know the San Diego benching.
Yeah.
So what's your gut feeling? Is he going? I got to think he may go.
So this is where I'm a little indifferent for now.
Okay.
Both sides of the spectrum, I'll go ahead and I'll address. The first of which is there are the two Bills quarterbacks that had the last two playoff appearances, Jim Kelly / Rob Johnson.
Yep.
Tyrod Taylor, right after that. Every quarterback that the Bills have had from 1999 to 2017 were not able to lead them to the promised land.
Oh, my, that's pretty amazing.
That's one aspect that I think about. But then another thing that I think about is, all right, Tyrod Taylor, good player, not a great player. However, you saw what Sean McDermott was able to do in year one with Buffalo. Granted that everyone was writing Buffalo off when the season started. They traded Sammy Watkins.
Sure.
They traded Ronald Darby. People thought they were throwing in the towel. They were going to be one of the worst teams in the league last year. And coaching, I personally think, is a very underrated aspect of the NFL. You look at what happened to Alex Smith's career when he was in San Francisco. Terrible. Booed off the field time and time again. You bring in Jim Harbaugh, and look at what he's been able to do ever since Jim Harbaugh came in. Starter for the 49ers, traded to Kansas City or released. Did well for Kansas City. He's not the reason they lost that playoff game to Tennessee. That all goes back to coaching. And now here he is in Washington. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, if you give him the right situation and the right pieces around him, he could be a superstar player. But I still think it might be a little too early to tell. I know he's been playing football for the better part of, 6 or 7 years or so?
Something like that, yeah.
He was a backup for Joe Flacco for a little bit. But we'll see. I mean, did any of us really think that Nick Foles was going to be hoisting a Super Bowl trophy?
No, you're right.
So that's where there's always some kind of gray line as to, does someone have what it really takes?
I guess we're going to take our commercial break now and pay homage to our great sponsor to make this show possible. My friend Keith Baley from Del Lago, graduate out of Red Jacket, powerhouse in the world of sports, I might add, from a high school level. This is Weber This Week. Let's take our break and come back. We got more to talk to Keith and some other topics as well. Acting as a gateway to the Finger Lakes, Del Lago leverages the natural beauty and unique offerings while enhancing tourism in the region. The casino features 2,000 slot machines, 89 gaming tables, including 12 poker tables, portico by Fabio Viviani, a 2,400-person entertainment center, farmers market buffet. The hotel, spa, and banquet facility will open summer 2017. Cayuga Lake National Bank. Visit Bill Ryan and his team for all of your banking needs. Offices in Union Springs and Aurora, a fine sponsor of this show for over 30 years. DA Liquor on Bridge Street in Seneca Falls. Amy Padula and her team will find the right spirit for you every time. When you stop in, tell Amy the dog sent you. The Gold Hotel welcomes you to come out and enjoy the revitalization of this historic downtown Seneca Falls landmark.
Every Wednesday is Ladies' Night with special price drinks and half-priced appetizers. The Omen Theater on William Street in Lyons. See what's playing this week at omentheater.com. Located off New York State Thruway Exit 41, the McGee Diner has earned their reputation as a popular family restaurant, serving country fresh home-cooked meals daily. Stop in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and check out their menu at mcgeediner.com. The Child Advocacy Center of the Finger Lakes is a child-friendly location where allegations of physical or sexual abuse are responded to by a multidisciplinary team of professionals. The team works together to conduct a thorough investigation and to provide necessary support services to children and their non-offending caregivers with a goal of minimizing further trauma to a child. Seneca Metals is an award-winning company that has earned a reputation of going above and beyond to protect the environment and support their community. As an EPA inspector once said, their operation is head and shoulders above the rest. And the Newark Pilots of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League, a minor league team with a major league ballpark. Season ticket packages available at newarkpilots.com. And the Wilson Press in Seneca Falls. My good pal Rich Rickey and his team can handle all of your printing and mailing needs. Visit them online at wpress.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's a Dog with you on another Weber This Week show. Keith Baley, my friend from Del Lago, very sports-minded, very knowledgeable in the world of football. And you get a chance, if you missed the beginning of our show, go back and replay it a little while because he put together a great YouTube presentation of the playoffs through the Super Bowl. Very well done. Before I get back to Keith, a couple things I want to run by you and give kudos to the Nate Michaels fan club, which myself and Mary were yesterday. Nate Michaels, one of the most sought-out entertainers in the local area throughout all these counties around us, playing about every night of the week. Fantastic guitar player. We've had him on this show a couple of times. He's outstanding. He had a CD release yesterday at Ventosa Vineyards. Myself and Mary were out there, and my buddy Frank the Tank was out there, and we had a great time. He was expecting maybe a couple hundred people to show up. They had nearly 300 people. They were standing room only at the Ventosa banquet room. It was well done. Kudos goes out to Nate and his family and everybody putting on a great show yesterday. So had a chance to listen to a few tunes on his CD today as I was driving around this morning. Superb job, Nate. And this guy's going to go places other than the counties surrounding us, even though there's nothing wrong about playing bars and restaurants. But I think Nate is on a move upwards trajectory. Great job, Nate. Great entertainment yesterday, and it was really a fun time. Hey, by the way, just a reminder, I want to remind you on a cause that's pretty dear to my heart, and that, of course, is calling all runners and walkers. Help give cancer the middle finger by participating in the second annual Middle Finger 5K scheduled for May the 5th, 2018. Register, if you would, by visiting www.thrive2survive.org. Registration includes quality t-shirt and breakfast at the Pier House restaurant following the 5K. We sold out last year, so you better register today. 100% of all funds raised go directly to support adults in our community living with cancer. And by the way, that touches my heart. Obviously, my son-in-law, Matt Foe, who many of you are familiar with, he passed away some 7 years ago with brain cancer. And his family and a lot of people are involved. His sister and, of course, Jen Venuti Harris is involved big time. And the reason I point that out is I'm asking her to come on the show next week. I realize it's short notice, but she can talk further about this great thing. But she also, I'm going to do a close-up. I was checking Facebook today, and she is on Rochester Woman. Getting a front cover picture, and of course the story talking about Thrive to Survive to help families out when someone in that family certainly undergoes the tragedy of getting cancer of any sort. So again, I have invited her to come on next week. We had an opening. I don't know if she can make it or not. We'll find out later after the show. But get involved in that and certainly try to be a part of that 5K. And again, so you all know, it's www.thrive2survive.org. All the details are in that. Okay, back to my friend Keith Baley. And Keith, as we talk about a couple other sports topics, since we're only got about 5-6 minutes left, we'll get you to give some quick answers. The contract of Garofalo, surprising to you?
It was. Couple reasons being that much money with that many starts under his belt. Mm-hmm. Granted, he did win all of his starts, which is impressive. And some Niners fans who are listening might listen to me now and say, what is he thinking, saying him under the same breath as Brock Osweiler? But Brock Osweiler, similar situation. He was given a huge contract for a very small sample size of games that he was able to play. Now, I will say Jimmy Garoppolo, a lot better than Brock Osweiler, hands down. And the Niners have the most cap room in the NFL to work with this offseason, so it's going to be a very enticing team to visit and play for next year. But I do have to say my final words on this, that if the 49ers over the next 5 years miss the playoffs 3 times or more, this would have been a disappointing deal.
All right, let's talk about the best kept secrets in 60 minutes. Andrew Luck. Coming back next year, will he be healthy? Will he play? Is he done? I mean, they keep that pretty sealed about where he is in his rehab. Of course, we all know he didn't play at all this year. What is your thoughts? You think he'll be ready?
I hear that he had actually a minor setback. I don't know how big it is or how valid the source was, but we'll see what happens with Andrew Luck. I want him to succeed. I mean, I know the Colts are a divisional rival to Tennessee, but you never want to see anything like that happen to anyone's career, no matter who they are. And Andrew Luck, I hope to see him in Indianapolis Blue next year.
Very interesting. And, of course, we all know Aaron Rodgers will be back. He's going to get healthy. We saw him at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am this week, so he's playing some golf. And, by the way, for you folks who follow this stuff, he is dating Danica Patrick of racing fame, who is retiring. She is going to run the Daytona 500 and the Indy 500. Those are only 2 that she's committed to. She's got sponsors for that. But she's dating Danica Patrick. So Aaron Rodgers and Danica hooking up. So we'll see what happens on that state of affairs. Now, we got to talk about one element, as we only got a couple minutes left, that's in driving me nuts and driving you nuts and driving Jimmy nuts and driving broadcasters crazy and these officials. The catch. What is considered a catch in the NFL? As Jimmy winces over there, because he's probably like me going, are you serious? What is a catch in the NFL? I used to think years ago it was a lot easier back then. The catch, touchdown, raise the hands, no catch, good night. But now you have to be able to maintain the ball through the ground upon hitting the ground. Explain in a minute your thoughts on that. And I know they're going to talk about changing the rule. Thank God. I can't imagine anything more controversial than catching passes anymore in the NFL.
Well, the problem over the last couple of years was what used to be extremely black and white as to what's been considered a catch. There's a huge gray area now as to what people think is a catch or not. And it all started with Calvin Johnson back in Week 1 against the Chicago Bears back in, I believe it was 2013. And what I think, and Zach Ertz had a touchdown like this similar in the Super Bowl, and people are comparing that to the Jesse James catch and the Des Bryant catch, to which I say there was a huge difference between those 3 catches. Des Bryant was falling to the ground. The Steelers tight end.
Jesse
James, that's right. He was falling to the ground. Zach Ertz took 3 steps.
He was considered a runner.
He took 3 steps with the ball in his hand, extended to the goal line, ball came out. He was established as a runner. The other 2 situations, those 2 players did not take any steps. That's why that was considered a touchdown. But this is something that they need to address, and they need to look at it and form an opinion on it, based completely different from what the rules say. The refs need to get together and say, all right, did he catch the ball?
Right.
Straight up, did he catch it?
Exactly. It's driving me nuts. I think Goodell, the commissioner, is certainly concerned about getting this once and for all rectified relative to the referees making a call so we can move on. I mean, it just drives you nuts. You wonder every time a catch is made. And now I watch myself now, and you probably do the same thing. If Jimmy Sennacobi catches a pass and he holds on to it and he's going to the ground, I'm now looking at Jimmy's hands when the ball hits the ground, whether there's a wobble. Because if there's a wobble right now, based on the rule, it would not be a catch.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of weird how you look at angles all of a sudden. So I hope they get that corrected. Well, listen, we're up at 3:30. I knew this show would go fast. You and me booked this about a few months ago. You said you'd love to come on. You've been a great guest, and I appreciate you taking time out to come and join us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate your knowledge and keep it going. This guy's got a lot of knowledge when it comes to NFL. You want to spend a break with him, he can tell you anything about the NFL. He probably knows a little bit about the rest of the sports, but NFL, he's certainly key, and he knows his stuff. So next week, we might have a guest. We have extended invitation. It's been kind of a late invitation out to Jennifer Venuti Harris regarding Thrive to Survive. We don't know if she'll be in. If not, myself and Jimmy will find plenty of time to talk about high school basketball, sectionals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, the following week, we do have a booking on the 26th of February, and that, of course, we're bringing in not Mark Benjamin. He's been here too often. Just kidding, Mark. His talented wife, Claire, who's an artistic with chocolates and food preparation. The girl does about 90 things. She's very talented. Matter of fact, how talented she is, I'm going to meet with her this Friday to talk about her appearance on this show coming up on the 26th. And then one other booking that we've already made for March 5th, talking about a place that needs a lot of help from me. Yeah, right. Connie's Diner, the owners, Paul and Carmen Cardozola will be in. You ever try to go into Connie's Diner? Good luck. It's fabulous over there. The food is sensational. They're lined up out the door. I've always been intrigued by Connie's, and I go there a lot, and they're going to come in and tell about what makes them so successful. So speaking for my friend Keith Baley, along with Jimmy Senecrobi, the director and the owner of FingerLakes1.com, this is the dog bidding you a farewell. And don't forget, folks, get out and take care of that loved one for Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, ladies.